Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Being Spiritual with me, your host, Ashley Robinson, live on Facebook and YouTube with Spiritual Psychics TV. Wonderful to have you all on the show tonight, folks. And I've got a very special guest, Mr. Jason Rothwell, that's joining us this evening. Good evening, Jason. Welcome on board.
Thank you for the invitation.
Absolute pleasure. It's our last Being Spiritual of show of the year, and I couldn't think of a better way to finish it. We spoke probably over a year ago about you first coming on the show, and I know you're very busy with your spiritualism, but yeah, really delighted that you've been able to join us this evening.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and it's a pleasure to get to sit and speak with you properly.
It's great. Really looking forward to it and a bit of a chat. And if you're joining us for the first time, folks, a special welcome to you. Tonight is a spiritualist philosophy chat show. It's very much a show that I hope you engage with. So you've not just got me and Jason talking to you, but you're asking us questions. You're getting involved in the debate. You can ask us almost anything this evening. I mean, most of it, I imagine, should be within the umbrella of spiritualism. But yeah, ask us anything, folks. What we will be doing as well in between the chat is doing a couple of messages. So, you know, a good way of testing that we can see your comments is to engage with us now. So give us a little bit of love on Facebook. Give us your thumbs up. Give us your hearts. Share the stream and tag some of your friends. Help us build that community. And if you're on Facebook, just participate in the live video chat. All of your comments should be seen by the producer, who relay them back to Jason and I. If you're on YouTube, you do need to make sure you've logged in, folks. Get free accounts on YouTube. Log in, participate on the live chat, and then those comments will be seen by other people in the chat, and then they should be seen in the studio. Now, every now and then, folks, Facebook has some weird algorithms, and we don't always get your comments. So if you've not seen your comment go up and you think we should have seen it or made reference to that, then do try again, and we'll try and get those forward. So it'd be nice to know where you're watching the show from tonight. You don't have to be as specific as on the toilet or on the couch, but, you know, where in the world are you watching the show from today? We know we've got some people close to me down in South London. We've got people across the pond and people on the other side of the world. So it's always great to hear from you. I'm in South London tonight, in Wimbledon. Jason, where are you based?
In Oldham, in North Manchester, near the Pennines.
So you've also had a cold front this week of weather?
It's freezing. My boiler stopped working just before this started, so it's going to get extra special cold in an hour or two.
You might be adding some layers and some blankets.
For certain, I will be having a coat on before much longer.
Well, let's hope you stay warm and safe. And folks at home, I do hope that you are warm, dry, and safe. And really looking forward to having you part of the show today. So it is a interactive show, folks. So by all means, do comment. Do think about some questions you want to ask us. I'm going to have a bit of a chat with Jason in a little bit, and that might take us off on a particular direction. The other thing to remember, folks, is that I have my own page. Jason has his own page. I think it's Jason D. Rothwell on Facebook, and I'm at Ash Robinson Medium. Spiritual Psychic TV, if you like, it's called a fan page, so it doesn't have an individual profile account. And if you do receive a friend request from someone claiming to be Spiritual Psychics TV, then that's very likely a troll and a scammer. So SPTV doesn't have a personal account, folks, across any of the platforms. You'll see always the organization page, and always, you know, like a good spiritualist, always test your communicator, find out who they are, and get them to verify who they are certainly before revealing any private information. And as you know, folks, a good medium shouldn't be asking you questions anyway, particularly your credit card number. So bear that in mind when someone trying to scam you. So it'd be good to get some of your comments up in a minute, and we can see where you're watching the show from. While we're doing that, folks, please do help us build that community. So on YouTube, just click that right forward arrow and share it. And on Facebook, you can say tag it on your streams. Stay Short says, good evening to Richard, Ashley, and all in the chat. Hope you're all warm and well. Lovely to have your name and face come back up. Stace, hope you're doing well. Sending you some love and light.
Good evening to Anthony Sebring. You've joined us on YouTube. By the look of your picture, I'm vaguely guessing you're in America. I have no idea why, but you feel like an American.
Lovely. Terry Louise, good evening to you, Terry. Thanks for all the hard work you do behind the scenes for SBTV UK as well.
And good evening to Julie Caswell, and a very bonny cat, which looks very much like my cat, actually. I'm not quite sure where he is tonight.
Natalie Bentley, good evening to you.
And good evening to Ali J. Glad I said that right, because that could have been a bit.
Doon the Duck, hi to you. I assume it's Doon the person as opposed to Doon the Duck, but yeah. Good evening.
Good evening to both of our very good friends, Phil Shaw. Lovely to have you with us.
And Shelley Stewart says hi to everybody. Hi, Shelley.
And good evening to Kerry Farmer. I do like the reindeer. It's not a reindeer, was it? It was a deer.
I've got my reindeer on tonight as well. Cool looking dude with glasses on. Yvonne Jackson from Preston, Lancashire. Good evening to you, Yvonne. And
oh, sorry.
That's right. I was going to say, I wondered if anyone else was wearing festive jumpers at home tonight.
Well, I suppose a dog collar is quite festive for Leslie Moulton, since it's a Christian holiday just around the corner.
Nicola Humphreys, school Christmas holidays are here. Whoop whoop. Hiya, Nicola. Yeah, my kids are all packed in school today.
Hello, June Malkin. I have bumped into June a few times over the years. Lovely to have you with us.
Hello from Ashley to Ashley. I mean, that's Ashley M. Could be Ashley Mills or another Ashley. Good evening, Ashley.
Oh, hello, Shawana Skinner. I'm hoping I've said that. Shawana, nice to have you with us. And I was just talking about California earlier, actually, going next year. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed. Heather Green, good evening to you.
Oh, get in. See, I knew you were an American, Anthony. And Oklahoma is quite a nice place. I have a few friends who live not far away.
Rebecca Whelan, good evening to you.
They run a skip hire company near me, the Whelans. And hello to Sharon Leach.
Okay, folks, I think we've got through most of you that have participated in the chat. And if we've not specifically mentioned your name, don't worry, we're still sending you a love and light. And it is great to have you on the show tonight. So start thinking about your questions, folks. Think about the types of things you might like to ask. Because what you're going to get is our honest, humble opinions this evening. And we'll have a bit of a chat about it. So Jason, we were chatting a little bit offline, actually. We were talking a little bit about spiritualism and its direction. And I wondered, what was it that first got you involved in spiritualism yourself?
A psychiatrist. I have got mediums in the family, and I've spoke to the spirit world on and off over the years. And when I was 27, I decided I was going mad. And a lady appeared in my house who kept talking to me. I rang my mum and I was like, there's a lady in my house and she won't go away. And mum's like, all right. And I'm like, do you not think it's slightly odd that I'm telling you there's an invisible lady stood in my house communicating with me? And she's like, no, not really. Your gran used to do it. It's about time one of us did it. Anyway, I went to a psychiatrist, hopefully about to receive really, really heavy, hardcore drugs to make the lady go away. And the psychiatrist turned around and said quite offhandedly, have you ever considered going to a spiritualist church? As I can't actually find anything wrong with you. You seem to believe the lady's really there. Everything I've done would suggest that you genuinely believe she's there. I'm not saying I believe she's there, but you should maybe go to a spiritualist church and find out. I walked into a spiritualist church. The lady appeared for the final time. I've never seen her again. And she just went, it's took you bloody long enough, didn't it?
You got the point. You got the message.
In the end, yeah. I've never seen her again. I have no idea who she is, but she did what was needed. And I've never walked out of a spiritualist church from there.
Oh, great. And it's interesting, actually, as I sort of started on that question, Mary Butcher was just saying, can anyone connect with spirit if you try hard enough? And she said she'd love to be able to do it. So you wasn't even trying, and spirit found a way to communicate with you at that time. But how would you answer Mary's question?
I would absolutely, Mary, say that everybody can connect to the spirit world. I know people use the word, I wish I had the gift, often. And without sounding sort of up for myself, I sort of cringe when people say that, because I just think it is a gift. I absolutely feel blessed to have been given the opportunity that I have been given. But it is not a gift that is only held by a few people. I believe everybody in the entire world can possess the ability to connect with your higher self, with the divine mind, with loved ones in the other world. I would just say, though, as I've said to lots of people over the years, I like singing. It doesn't mean I can. And I love dancing, but my other half would say I can't dance because I've got no rhythm. I believe everybody can connect with the spirit world. Whether you can necessarily do it well is entirely up to how much work you're going to put in to learn how to do it, since we can all learn to sing and dance brilliantly if we're willing to give it a fair bit of time and don't know, a fair bit of confidence and trust.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a really nice way of putting it, and it's a great context because, you know, I would describe my dancing style as the equivalent of a sort of levitating bag of spanners. But for the first time last week, I had a go at salsa. And actually, you know, I started to improve. It was only an hour. You know, the American dance company had their work cut up on them. But actually, after an hour of instruction, I was ever so slightly better than what I was before. So if I go back and do it again, you know, the argument is the more you practice, the better you can get. If you find someone who's really good at it and that can train, you can learn from them too. So I think it was quite a good context there with dancing and singing. Some people are naturally gifted.
It's interesting that, like, you know, when you use the idea of salsa, because it just brings to mind something that happened last week where I sat in a development circle and 3 people said they couldn't, no matter how often they tried, work mediumistically. Then I just decided to try and make them use a different clair to the one that they were being taught to use. They were always taught to use clairvoyance. So then they're said to like use clairsentience and clairaudience and taught them through it. Before we got 15, 20 minutes in, they're connecting, doing communication. And it was like, it's not that you can't do it, it's just you're using the wrong steps. Wrong dance for you, wrong rhythm for you, do it this way, off we go. And kind of thing. I like that dance one, actually. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, we've come up with a nice sort of hybrid answer because as you sort of speak, I can think, yeah, actually, because I'd had a go at Zumba before the salsa, and you know, arguably I was slightly better at one or the other, but you know, I might not take on breakdancing just yet. the right combination of my moves.
No, well, that's it. It's like, you know, I like mental mediumship. I don't fancy trying trance or physical mediumship just yet, but that's not to say we can't all do a little bit of everything, but you definitely should play to your strengths, shouldn't you? And dancing and singing are not one of mine. So mediumship is where I try to be better than both.
So with your mediumship, you spoke about seeing someone, and if you were describing that now to sort of you know, the audience, were you seeing that person with your physical eyes? Was it sort of physical phenomenon? Were you seeing them with your mind's eye?
Oh, with my mind's eye, you know, I have got in trouble for saying this before, but it is only my opinion. When lots of people say they see things with their physical eyes, I can only go off my experience, and I question people who say they see things with their physical eyes and hear things with their physical ears, because I don't understand why the spirit world would waste so much energy doing that. But it's only because I have not had it happen very often in my life. That lady was in my head. I knew she was in my head. But if I was to look in front of me in the room, I could see where my mind's eye said she was stood and what she looked like and what she was dressed like. Because at first I did say to my mum, like, there's a lady inside my head. You know, there's somebody alive inside my body. I can feel them. And she was like, well, just ask her to come and talk to you. And then when I did, it was like, oh, she sat on the sofa. And that was how it worked for me. I mean, I know people do see them in physical form and people do hear them in physical sound, but I don't personally. And I think it's quite rare to have that. But yeah, in answer to your question, yeah, she was in my head.
I think you kind of went into another subject there, which is a really sort of important one, and I absolutely agree with you. I think for spirit to do things, you know, physical, and I use the word physical phenomenon, I think it is quite rare. Now, I say that as someone who has gently and excitably provoked spirit to give me evidence of physical phenomenon, and I've been to so-called haunting houses when they've rung the church and they've said, please, can you come to the house because things are going on? And there's a big part of me that really wants them to throw something across the room or present themselves, but I'd say 99.9% of the time, actually, the communication happens exactly as it would in a private reading or on a church platform. It's still within my mind's eye. When energy to energy, they are finding a way to get that intelligence, that evidence of their personality across.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, do you know, in some ways I've asked them to do things, and in other ways I've sort of said, please do it. And then there's a little voice in the back of my mind saying, please don't, because if you do, that's really going to question my version of reality, and I'm not sure I'm ready for it just yet. And the few times where I have had like physical manifestations or apports rather, I hate to say I've been a drama queen, but the one time I saw a port appear in front of me, I definitely had to take my lunch twice, because I was like, I don't understand this. And my husband was like, surely that's cool. And I'm like, no, that's really not cool. Something has just appeared in the physical world that shouldn't be here. And it made me feel very, very sick.
And I think that, although we hear from sort of Victorian ancestors about, the rappings and tappings and sort of knockings, actually the way that spiritualism has progressed has meant that there's not necessarily the need for them to wait that amount of time and concentration in order to make a tapping on the door, when they can influence, mediums to a certain extent and people around them in meditative states.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to be careful, haven't you? Because you don't want to upset anybody or speak without experience, I suppose. But there is sort of things about tapping and people sitting in boxes and all sorts of things. Phenomena I have never experienced, but also phenomena I would never wish to experience, because from a logical point of view, I don't understand why the spirit world would waste so much time doing it. It's like people have asked me, do I want to go watch a table tip? I think, well, no. And if I was in the spirit world and somebody asked me to tip a table, the only thing I would do is sit on the table and be like, it's not going to move, I promise you. The more you ask me, the less I'm going to make it move. Those people who used to do those things are very interesting, the knocking and the rapping and stuff like that. But I just question, what is the intelligence behind it? And the purpose of it? What is the purpose of making a table dance around a room?
Yeah, I mean, I love a bit of an experiment, but I also get frustrated by the speed in which that communication would take place. I mean, I've worked with the Spirit Board and the Ouija Board, and I'm thinking, imagine our ancestors that wrote entire books spelling things out on the Ouija board, and how long that would have taken, versus more automated or inspired sort of speaking, or where they can communicate you with in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the spirit world is incredibly efficient, and I think sometimes we, as humans, we interpret things in a very inefficient fashion, and it's like, especially like the Ouija board. I mean, I've sat and watched them. I've never participated in one, and I wouldn't, possibly because of old-time superstition more than anything else. But they do just seem rather inefficient. The whole knock once for yes, twice for no, and then they sort of, you say knock 3 times if there's nobody here, knock twice if there's somebody here, and then you get 3 knocks, and it's like, think about it, love. It is interesting. I don't really tempt them very often. I'm happy with what they give me and leave it there. But you do what you need to do. And
as you said, there's a palette of gifts, there's a palette of clairs and different opportunities to work with that energy. Someone was just commenting about meditation, and I've personally been involved with spiritualism all my life. I'm 40 years old now, so I've always been aware about the purpose of meditation, but I've always struggled to follow one, even though in my mum I've got very good sort of orator and storyteller as a kid, because as soon as I sort of get into that place, I start wandering off and thinking about the shopping list or things I've sort of got to do. So someone was saying they personally struggle to visualize that and sort of any help. But I also think it's about finding your mojo, isn't it, and finding your zone and what it is can get you in that space. Any advice for people that might be looking to start meditating or getting into a different space?
Yeah, I mean, me and Sam Pert were talking about this the other night, actually. I think meditation is incredibly badly taught, by and large, by spiritualists as much as anybody else. I think we really sort of flog the wrong sort of form when it comes to how to meditate. There is that sort of, everybody says, calm your mind, quieten your mind, focus on your breathing, blah, 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 blah. It's not that easy. And people sort of, I've sat in circles where people have literally sort of shouted at somebody, like, you must calm your mind, you must follow the instructions. It's like, if you need to think about what you've got to do tomorrow, Absolutely. Sit there and think about it. Take it in, let it pass through the mind and blow it away. But I wouldn't stress about Chinese. I think that's one thing people really do, is they stress about the fact that they can't quieten their mind. And then their frustration makes more noise in the mind. And before you know it, you're having an argument with yourself, you're getting very upset, very frustrated. And like many, many, many people end up doing, just go, I can't meditate now. Like, you can, everybody can. We do it all the time, when you're sat out looking out of a car window, not thinking about anything, just zombied, and somebody's like, you're all right, you're like, oh, it's a form of meditation in itself. Just got to let yourself go brain numb. But I would just say, not to say too much, but I would just remind people that your brain is a computer. It has lots and lots and lots of things that it needs to process to get about its day-to-day life. Therefore, when you do get those thoughts coming in a time of meditation, it's because your brain needs that time, and it's using the time that you're inactive to process the information it's got. The more often you sit, the longer you sit, the less you have to think about, because your brain has had more time to catch up. Therefore, in the end, you find a place where you might get 1 or 2 thoughts rather than 20, but it's because your brain is back on track. That's my personal opinion on it. Anybody who teaches meditation, I apologise, but
no, I agree with what you just said. Craig Nash was adding in that although he struggled, or he's tried meditation, he can't get in his own. He finds it more about tuning into his own intuition. I mean, that's sort of what you were saying there. And one of my favourite philosophers and teachers was Harry Edwards, and I used to love the word attunement. And he used to talk about this level of attunement, and always imagined like the radio and the old dials and tuning in or tuning out. And it's about finding what sort of motivates you and what triggers you and what gets you from one place to the next.
Absolutely. And I mean, we do the tuning or the attunement constantly in day-to-day life, don't we? Everybody does it. When you listen to, I mean, how often have you done the thing where when you go to look at somebody but you can't quite see properly? I don't know if you do this, might just be me being weird, but you put your hand to your ear to see better, and you're kind of why are you doing that? We attune ourselves in our bodies constantly, where we make, if you need to see better, you might sit on your hands so that your brain has more space. Men are terrible for it. They put their tongue in between their teeth to free up brain power, because so much of your brain is used up by your tongue. I used to have a boyfriend who was terrible for it. He used to always be like, you look like my dog. But it's just about freeing up the brain matter, isn't it? And when people are saying things in conversation, we attune to them. We sort of try and listen, and then we try and feel, don't we, inside their words and their body language, what is there. It's something we do every single day, all day. I find. What's this that Charisse Karan Mila?
Yeah, she was just talking about ribbon, and she was saying that she needed some ribbon ultimately, and it was going to be a long travel. When her 2-year-old daughter suddenly turned up with exactly the thing she needed, and she felt almost out of nowhere last night. And she had no idea what it was, and she wondered if it could be spirit. And I always say to people, I mean, always look for the supernormal explanation that maybe she had some ribbon. But if there is no reasonable explanation, perhaps you can look for something else. What do you think about stuff like that, Jason?
Yeah, I would absolutely say that. And Charisse, if the spirit has done that for you, then you have to assume that the spirit world knows that you're busy at the moment, that you have other things that are a priority. You don't have the time, or maybe you don't have the money to pay the petrol to take that sort of long drive or what have you. And so they've just done you a gentle favour. Doesn't take a great amount of energy to materialise some ribbon. I think it's probably that you've got family and friends in the spirit world who just thought, oh, go on, we'll do a good turn tonight and save you a job so that you could get the tea on time, or keep yourself nice and warm and safe, all those things. That is what I would say to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from an investigation point of view, so I like to rule out the supernormal, and then I think you look for meaning for stuff when it does happen, and particularly if someone was trying to get your attention, like that lady that eventually got you into the church. Spirit can be very patient with us. They can also often with messages, I find when I'm giving messages, they give us a bit of what's going on in our life right now to let us know they were around us. So I think that was a really nice explanation of them being close, understanding that, and then doing something quite useful.
Well, I mean, you say that about the supernormal. There is the other alternative, which I won't go down too far because it is a bit of a long, winding topic. But is the idea that we all have the divine spark inside us. We all have that creative power. Thought creates manifestation. We shape reality. You could argue Charisse knew she needed the ribbon, but she had no time to get the ribbon, so she sent out a subconscious, higher-minded thought into the ether, bent reality around her purpose. Next thing, her daughter's got the ribbon. Ergo, Charisse didn't get sent that by anybody in the spirit world, but she sent it to herself because she is the creative god that needed to create that particular material at the time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that when Hollywood and something like Matrix go into that sort of sense of producing it. But yeah, spiritual talking, yeah, affirmations and the power of that, yeah, really powerful.
Absolutely, it's just something over the past year, specifically for myself, examples of, you know, and it is a bit Hollywood and Matrix-ish, I suppose. The examples of reality seeming to bend itself and time not flowing in the right way, and situations where I found objects that have not been lost yet, and then I find out about them being lost 3 or 4 weeks later, and you're kind of like, well, when did you lose that? It's like yesterday. It's like, you can't have found it yesterday because I found it 3 weeks ago. And they're like, well, I didn't lose it 3 weeks ago, so it can't have happened. I find examples of that more and more, like, they're kind of freaky, but there's sort of like a new normality to it, you know? Yeah. You just sort of start to take it in your stride and like, it's a little bit weird. I keep sending the lottery numbers out, and I keep asking for a Swedish au pair to knock on my front door one day and be like, hi, I've come to whisk you away, but I don't seem to be that good at creating it just yet.
I suppose, yeah, maybe you've got spirit friends around you. They say you don't quite need the Swedish.
Yeah. Like, you've got a perfectly good one there.
It's a nicety, and I think that's an interesting thing about affirmations in general. And we mentioned before we went online about Gordon Heedson, you know, a wonderful medium and president of the SNU at one point. But in one of Gordon's books, he talks about the fact that if you leave an affirmation in a sort of pending stage, it will always be pending. So if you talk about getting better, you'll always be in that limbo of getting better. Whereas if you think about an affirmation as I am well, you then focus on the I am well, and then it's that opportunity of bringing all that together with the now, and then what's needed, because we know that spirit can influence the spirit world immediately. It's a place of pure thought. This world, it takes a little bit more effort, and actually requires us and a bit of energy too.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, it kind of goes back to that fear of success, doesn't it? Do you want to be successful? And if you are successful, what does that require? And it's not about what the action up to the success requires, is what does it require after the success? And so we sort of say, we do want to be successful, we do want to achieve, we do want to be brilliant and powerful and healed and happy and all those things. But actually, if you do get to have those things, what do you do next? And so we do put them in, I suppose, press pause on them and be like, yeah, I totally can see that happening. I would love to get there by the end of my life, but we're a really long way off from that now, aren't we? And you're kind of like, well, no, just press play. Like, just accept it. I did a healing meditation earlier today, and it brought up a memory of my own from childhood. And it really sort of jolted me, and I was like, oh, I don't know. And somebody just from the spirit side said, like, we can deal with this now, or we can deal with it later. But it's here now, so should we just get rid of it? And it was like, oh, I'm not going to enjoy this. But like, go on, let it go through, let's play it out. I watched it, saw it, forgive it, loved it, like, thank you very much, see you later. And they were just like, see, that wasn't too hard, but it could have been gone for another 20 years before it popped around. Probably rambling there a little bit. It was a bit of a weird one for me, that was. How can you tell which Claire you are? Oh, that's difficult.
Practice.
Ashley, yeah. I was going to say, that's one of those, like,
have an experiment of you know clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. But you know, at times, I think sometimes the communicator will favour a particular clair. But I think that one of the things I've loved about circle and development work is the opportunity to work outside of your comfort zone as well. And some of the best circle leaders I've had sort of see what your comfort zone is and know you can operate there, but then challenge you to do it. And then there's a way of just knowing what works well for you. And you know, asking the communicator to perhaps present the same information in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when I read that question then, considering that I'd already just said we worked out about how to get people's clairs, I thought I was about to hang myself by my own acclamation. And I was going to do a dad being asked a question by a daughter and passing it on to mother type of thing, like, ask Ashley this question because it's easy for him to answer. I would say, Kathy, to sort of try visualization. If visualization doesn't work, then try to just say a word in your mind. And if you can say that word, that would represent clairaudience. Visualization would represent clairvoyance. If you can't do either, then I would suggest that you put your hand to your heart and you sort of look inside you, and then you try and find out where the feeling is. Like, can you feel emotion? Can you feel pain? Can you feel any sort of discomfort or changing of the physical aura of your body? It's an interesting one that lots of people, again, only my opinion, lots of people believe that the third eye is like right slap bang there. Whereas I think our third eye is slightly displaced in everybody. You know, if you take a minute and ask people, where do you see a picture in your mind? Most people would expect to see it here. But in a room of 14 people, everybody will touch a different part of their head and you'll be like, oh, well, that's where your third eye is then, clearly. And I don't suppose it has to be limited to your head. That's the only thing. But that's how I would do it, Claire. See a picture, can't see a picture, say a word. Can't see a picture or say a word. Try and find a feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. So we're going to give readings in between the sort of questions, so the next couple of phases of the show, and I'm going to do a little test of active listening. So I gave Facebook pages for Jason, and I am at Ash Robinson Medium, and with Jason's there was a letter. So I'm Ashley C for Charlie Robinson, and on Jason's Facebook page there was a letter after Jason. So you got 1 in 26 chance of guessing it if you weren't paying attention. But what letter on Jason's Facebook page is the first person to put that in the comments in the chat bar that I can see? I'll then give a little bit of a reading to. If Jason feels inclined, he'll add something to that as well. Otherwise, he might set his own challenge. What you have to do in order to sort of get the next reading. So yeah, first comment to come in, Jason's Facebook page. What letter of the alphabet follows Jason before Rothwell?
Oh, I was thinking then, I'm like, I'm sure you didn't say another word that I didn't hear. Like, that would be very weird.
Letter, single letter.
Well, you know, like when, is it Darren Brown who does it? He inserts words that you can't hear, but he's not hidden them from you. It's like he said them, you just didn't listen. I thought you'd done that then. I was like, oh, we're on different level stuff here.
No, and I'm fairly certain. I'll have to watch it back on playback to make sure I did give the letter because Richard gave it to us at the beginning of the show, and I thought I've remembered that. I'm going to tell people to go off and find your Facebook page. We haven't had any comments yet, so people perhaps Googling you now to make sure they're following your page. There we go. Well, so it was an A, Natalie. Close.
Hannah Mulburn.
Phil Shaw says D, and I did say Jason D. Rothwell, so correct. Mary Dixie as well. So the Wimbledon congregation obviously had the Weetabix, the small in. So Phil, you were the first person, and you know, Jason mentioned we both know you, but I just wanted to talk very quickly, Phil, about work. So I've drawn a card for you, actually, Phil, in doing this, and this card here, work, is all for me about the cogs and the wheels. So I know a little bit about you, and I'm not going to go into too much detail there, but what I am being told by my own guides is that there's an element of the factory, the Phil Shaw factory, all of the moving parts coming back together and being in sync. And I feel this is quite important because the other word that I was hearing with that, Phil, was union. And I saw these rivers, these two little streams coming together in union to form this river, and I want to celebrate that. I also had a woman just coming forward above and beyond my guides, woman claiming to be your mother. Now, I knew your mother, Phil. I'm not going to go and give more evidence of that. She's claiming to be your mother, and she was just talking about this celebration of if I've got a wedding union as well within the family that she wanted to mock. So Phil, that's for you. Jason, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add, or if you wanted to set your own challenge.
The only thing I would add to what Phil said, I mean, I did actually just get told a letter, so I've just screened through there, and there is one person who used that letter, so I am going to speak to, if I can, Natalie Bentley.
Lovely.
I do feel I have to say to you, Phil, where Ashley mentions your mum, that there seems to be something that you've forgotten to buy for Christmas dinner, or something that you need to take with you. And she seems to be very adamant that you've not done it yet. So can you sort of just pull your socks up and like do that, whether that's jam or cranberry sauce or mint sauce or something like that. It's just something simple, but she says it's up to you this year to get it, and you don't seem to have done it just yet, or you've got the wrong one. But that's all I get there. But if I could have, what did I say?
Natalie Bentley.
That's the one, Natalie Bentley. If you could just say hello. Natalie, I seem to be needing to give you a really big cuddle from a lady who has just stepped in. As she does step in, she brings me a bit of a heart problem. I'm not saying this is her heart problem, but she has come in with the energy of a heart problem. She is talking about sending healing for where somebody has had a chesty cough over the past few days. She wishes to wish you a Merry Christmas. She says that there is a couple of people in the family who are not feeling Christmas at all this year for some reason. She is talking about just fixing a little bit of anxiety, and there is definitely what feels like a respiratory problem mixed with a cancerous condition together. So I need a lady who would have had cancer and would have had a respiratory issue at the same time, but she does seem to want to fix where somebody's been poorly, where somebody has anxiety. Oh, okay. And the only thing I can leave you with, Natalie, because I don't want to go on too long, is I don't know if you've damaged a Christmas present or you're not feeling Xmas and you have anxiety. Can you understand, Natalie, where you might have damaged a present or where somebody has damaged it, broke it deliberately, if that's a memory? She keeps sitting on a box, and every time this lady sits on this box, it breaks. She's laughing at it, but I just want to give you her love, and basically you need to get in the Christmas spirit. Basically, she's adamant that you not yet damaged. We just remember about being careful where you place them. I don't know whether you've got a dog or whether you've just got children or grandchildren, whatever, but she keeps laughing at this damaged present, and it does feel about somebody sitting on something more than anything else. And I leave you with the love of the spirit, Natalie, and thank you for speaking to me. I'm sorry it's only brief, but there we are.
Oh, lovely, lovely little message. And folks, when you ask us questions, perhaps we'll be drawn to you as well. We're giving you a message in between. Ricky, and from the Ricky and Tyler duo there, was just mentioning he thought he saw a younger man behind you, and he kept getting H. Now, I'm guessing Ricky's talking about Spirit Man as opposed to an intruder in your home, Jason. He's walking out with your telly in the background. No, yeah, Ricky and Tyler sending you some love, and I know that Tyler's, I think his mum had just passed away. The producers, they've had shows producing them on SBTV. Yeah, sending you all a bit of love out there, Ricky.
I've worked with them before on SBTV. Lovely pair of people. I do know a younger man in the spirit world, and I could understand why you would have a hate with him for certain. So thank you for that, Ricky.
Appreciate it. So Ashley says, is it normal for spirit to be so present and then seem to disappear? I mean, actually, that sort of goes back to the first thing you said about, and what we discussed on where are you seeing, spirit, and have they sort of got their purpose? So I think that, yeah, it depends on how you're seeing them. Is it a glimpse within that mind eye to disappear and then reappear? And of course, whether or not you're focused, tuned in, all the different words we're using. Jason, anything you wanted to ask to that?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you there, Ashley. I'm like, it depends if you tuned in. I would also suggest, Ashley, that not Ashley Robbins and Ashley M, that it can also relate to the idea that we have things going on in our life. I think sometimes people have this misconception that when difficult times are around us, the spirit world should come closer, and by their coming closer, you should be able to feel them stronger. I actually think contrary is true. I think the closer they come, the harder it is to feel them, because that you are so focused on the things that you've got going on in your life, like the worries and concerns that you might have, that it's hard to reach out and hear them. But at that point, they are closer than anything. I mean, I was at a passing a few years back, and a member of the family said, you talk to the people upstairs, go and speak to my mum, tell her to get in here, and what have you. And I literally said, I can't, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. And he was like, well, why? And so be a bit over poetic. I said, when you're in the heart of the storm, the storm itself is hard to see because you're in the moment of it. And I think, just in answer to your question, to put it simply, Ashley, if you are struggling and feel that 1 minute they were there and the next minute it's gone, either it is very likely to be Ashley's answer to you, which is you're just not tuned in at that moment in time, or you have things going on in your life and the reason you can't feel them around is because they are busy fixing the issues that you have going on and they are closer to you than ever. It's a bit like the thing, isn't it, I suppose, what I'm trying to get at, the footprints in the sand when there's only one pair of footprints, and it's like, yeah, then I'm carrying you, and it's like, oh, well, but you didn't know you were being carried at the time. That's how I like to think of it.
That's nice answer. We've got people saying hello and best wishes from all across the world tonight. Philippines and Japan, across the pond in the States. There's some there from Australia. So thanks to all those that have come and joined us. And it made me think about a question around sort of what people see as barriers. You know, I speak English, poor English, schoolboy English, and a little bit of schoolboy French. But in terms of barriers to language, you know, in the same way that the client doesn't need to be sat in the same room as me and can be online on Teams or something like that. Actually, the language is a human, you know, condition, and in the spirit world they don't have to use it. And I think that you know, the way that they might influence through you, Claire's, they're relying on you as the palette, I think, to a certain extent anyway. They can still influence. You can still have those conversations within your mind. Christine Woodham was actually one of my circle leaders there, Jason. She's just popped in to say hello and give us some of her points as well. Phil Shaw was also giving some verification, definitely consolidation, fruition in career and mediumship. Already got my Xmas lunch sorted, Jason, so can't immediately think what I've forgotten, but I hope I'll remember. Hopefully you remember before you go to eat it then, Phil. Have a look now. If you've got it all, go and check what's missing, or ask your mum. She's certainly forgotten her bit, her unseen place at the table. Okay, yeah. So on language then, Jason, anything else that, you know, as a stereotype people think could be a barrier? Anything you want to sort of talk about how spirits don't seem to suffer from that?
Well, I mean, I'm quite lucky where I live because, well, just down the road from me, a church I go to often is Anglesey, or Yanis Mon, where most people are bilingual, and most of their families are bilingual too. I suppose, without wishing to offend anybody, as a dirty, ignorant Englishman, as I found out one of the first times I went there by a lady in the spirit world, she told me that she wasn't going to speak to me unless I learned to speak Welsh. So I was like, what? She was like, you're going to speak Welsh tonight. I was like, I can't speak Welsh. And she's like, well, I'm going to tell you a few things, and just remember that words and feelings are different. Like, the feeling behind the word is exactly the same. The word in front of it can be completely different. And so she gave me a sound, and I was like, I don't know this sound. And then she gave me the emotion that tells me what the word meant. And I was like, they're saying a word like tith, telleth. I said, but the feeling is granddad. And like, yeah, the Welsh word for granddad is tith. Welsh word for nan is ninth. And that was a very interesting sort of sensation, because you often get told, don't you, that you can't say anything from the spirit world that you don't know yourself. I've heard people say it, and it's nonsense, because I did a reading about 6 months ago for a lady in Tanzania, and her son came through and he said, my mum needs to know I'm here, therefore you are going to speak to her in Swahili. And I said, well, I have a bit of a problem there, kid, because I don't speak a word of Swahili. And he said, just repeat exactly as I spell this word in your mind. And I'm like, okay. And I can't quote it now because obviously it was in the energy of the reading. The lady was sobbing. And I mean, I thought I was talking gobbledygook. You know, you hear the old saying about people talking in tongues. Well, that's how I felt. I was doing like, my chunga, my wonga. And I was like, this just sounds daft. But she was sobbing, and she was like, you're saying I love you, Mum, that I've been with my son, that I've been looking after my wife, I've been and sat with Dad in the spirit world, etc. But all of this come by a series of really weird words squiggled into my head, and I'm like, I'm going to pronounce this so badly. But love knows no language, does it? Love knows no boundaries, and any obstacle can be overcome with love. And I think if you just make love the heart of your communication, you can do anything, see anything, receive anything. Bizarrely, a few weeks later, I read for his sister. Before I read for his sister, before she come on the camera, he came and said, "Tell her Kalispera." And I'm like, well, that's not Swahili. I rang her. I said, your brother says I have to say Kalispera. She said, lovely, thank you. Kalispera to you too. I'm like, why are we talking in Greek? She's like, well, I'm currently sat in my apartment in Athens, so it's more appropriate than speaking Afrikaans or Swahili. It's language in the spirit world is a fascinating thing, because I never thought you could speak in tongues, but you can. I wouldn't like to hold myself to it now, though. I don't think I'd do much good going to Kenya and trying to talk to the spirit world. Sorry, it's a bit of a Twitter, that one.
No, it was good. I mean, it just shows the many different ways that spirit can present themselves. And actually, there's an element there I think you were sort of getting on, is about trust. Is you didn't personally feel confident as Jason, but you knew that spirit were right, and you just surrendered to that and went with it. And it was absolutely right. You're almost like pleasantly surprised yourself as well, which I think is nice thing about trust.
I was mind blown. I like, you know, when you always have those readings, don't you, that just stand out. And that was one of those where I think I rang about 5 people afterwards. I didn't tell them necessarily anything about the reading as such, but I was like, I just spoke Swahili to a lady in Tanzania because a person in the spirit world told me how to, and they're like, wonderful. I'm like, you don't understand how amazing what has just happened is. Like,
yeah, I think it's an important part. You know, again, before we went online, we were talking about, you know, ego, and I think there, as a medium, you know, most people talk about there's no place for an ego, but you need enough ego to get out of bed in the morning. You need enough ego to surrender yourself to the will of spirit and to sort of trust in it. But I also think that, you know, almost everyone I've met within spiritualism are themselves quite sensitive people. And there's an element of, you know, I've always got my dad who's alive, you know, now. He always say, treat the no as a challenge, Ash. If you get the no, you know, you go back to spirit and you ask them. But there's always that thing of, it always feels nicer when someone says, yeah, absolutely, true. That makes perfect sense. And actually, that was all I needed to hear. And I think that's what then gets me out of bed again the next day to do it again, to drive to the spiritualist church in the middle of nowhere, to get out on a platform to strangers and open your mouth, because you know that you're adding that value.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, that word ego always depresses me. I have an ego. I have quite a lot of it, and I'm not bothered. I think a lot of myself. Somebody once told me you have to smash ego away, and I said, you know, the ego is a very valuable and powerful tool when measured and proportionate. My greatest use of it is to say that no child ever learnt to speak, walk, eat, dance, write, read, that didn't do so because it didn't want its mum or dad to say well done. They didn't do it just because they wanted to. They did it because they were expecting somebody to pat them on the head and say, really well done, love you, congratulations. And I think a good amount of ego is what stops, say, somebody suffering with domestic violence turning around and saying, you know what, you don't get to do that to me because I am worth more than to be treated like that. You know, to value yourself enough to say, actually, I don't deserve this, is a very, very useful part of the ego. But no medium on this earth can say that they don't sort of give themselves a little fist punch when they've got something. You know, I mean, ages ago, we did something about, I've got a boat here that was torpedoed, and this man was like, yeah, I know the boat that was torpedoed. I was like, that happened to be torpedoed in the North Sea just off the coast of Norway. And he was like, it did actually. And I was like, come on, you know. And is that ego? Some people in certain places would certainly frown at you and say, oh, well, you didn't do that, the spirit world did. It's like, I know, but I trusted it enough to get it out. Like, come on, give yourself a pat on the back. And some people, I say this, and I don't know why I say this, and I probably get shot for it. Some people feign not having an ego, and there is nothing worse. I'd rather have somebody have a rampant ego than somebody pretend that they have none. You know, oh, I don't have any ego, and you think, you know, too long in the mirror does look eye type of thing. It's like when somebody's done a really good message, and they're like, oh, no, it's not me, it's the spirit world. It's like, shut up and just take a well done, for God's sake. Like, you did a good thing there. It was good. It's impressive. And yeah, and it's a word I hate. It's a word I hate because I think spiritualists use it to attack each other all the time, and I think we really misunderstand what the word ego means a lot. And without being negative, I think we use it a bit too often.
Absolutely, and I think it was actually a healthy conversation about it, because I also think about the entertaining part of spiritualism. I've never said this is entertainment, this is mediumship, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to attempt to give you evidence of life after death. If you're entertained by the way that I present that information and you get some upliftment for it, then I think that is a bonus, because I hope that you'll enjoy it enough to come back to the Spiritualist Church again. You'll enjoy it enough to tell other people and perhaps bring them. And I think that it's an important part of our movement, is that people are moved and they are uplifted by it, because some of the best mediumship evidence I've seen from fond little old ladies in my church at Wimbledon over the years as a kid. It's like it was brilliant evidence, but there were people in the church that switched off because it wasn't for them, and they were struggling to hear you, or they couldn't hear your voice in the back of the church. And then other mediums, you think that you perhaps give a little bit less evidence, but the way they deliver it with a bit of pizzazz, people are like, everyone in the church felt like they were all getting that message, and it made them want to come back. It also made them sort of pay attention and listen. So I think it's absolutely right. Christine Marius was just saying, well said, Jason, as well, and a round of applause.
Is that my lady who speaks Afrikaans? She speaks to me in the morning, says "go away" or something like that, I think.
Lady of many mysteries.
The thing about entertainment is bizarre as well. I mean, my nana loved a good laugh. And I can't for the life of me imagine she would come through to somebody who reminded her of a funeral director, at least not a funeral director with a good sense of humour. I went to a church once, and I would personally say that I paid more attention that night because it felt flat as anything to raising the vibration and giving humour more than deep, meaningful connection. And that was my mistake. But the week after, I then said to them before I started a demonstration, no humour tonight, serious only, deep, meaningful messages. And before that demonstration was over, we talked about a 4-day-old baby who had died of lung cancer.
Okay, he's back. Carry on, sorry.
Oh, before that demonstration was over, we spoke about a baby who died at 4 days old from lung cancer, a 13-year-old boy who had hung himself off the end of the bed, a 20-year-old man who'd hung himself, a 6-year-old lady who'd hung herself, and 2 lads who died in a horrific car accident. And I tell you what, as beautiful as that service was, it was awful. Because I got off and walked out and was like, that was horrible. For me to experience, for the people sat through it. I mean, everybody sat with bated breath. It was like, God, what's coming next? And in some ways, there was a really, really deep amount of healing done that night. It was a very powerful night. But if anybody walked out of there and said they enjoyed it, well, I tell you, they've got some funny sense of enjoyment. But there's always room for a little bit of laughter. And somebody said the other day that you shouldn't use laughter, shouldn't be humorous. None of my family would ever come through to somebody who didn't have a good sense of humour. And I wouldn't believe you if you said you had my nana and she wasn't having a laugh and a joke with you and a bit of the crack. I'd just be like, well, she's not my nana then, because she likes people who have a giggle.
Absolutely, and you want to bring the personality through as well as evidence of their life after death. You get evidence of their personality.
Yeah. I mean, and those messages that are of a deep healing nature, that are of sad, truly horrific stories in life, they are powerful. But there's a time and a place for them, and not everybody in a church necessarily needs to hear them, do they? You might have somebody there who's got mental health issues at that moment in time, feeling very low. They need a laugh and a giggle. Not, I've got a baby here who died at 4 days old. I was heartbroken that night. I went home and it was just like, I'm never doing a service like that again. I even went into a meditation, was like, if you ever let me do that again, please kick me off the rostrum as it happens. Because I was nearly for doing myself in myself.
Yeah, important to get the balance right, absolutely. Thank you. Sheanne has just said, okay, thank you. Sheanne was just saying before she dreamed that her mum was lost during a bug storm. A lot of warning was given to me and cried a lot until mum got diagnosed with cancer last November. Then by December 38, she passed away. So drastic. I can still feel mum is still praying for her. I know you say December 38. I don't know if you mean that she was 38 or the 38 was significant. But my dad's birthday is the 28th. And just as I was reading that, I did have a lady claiming to be your mum that was talking about sharing a birthday with my dad on the 28th. And you've already given us a lot of information there, Shian. You spoke about a lady that was diagnosed with cancer. She's taken me up towards the left-hand side of her body, around her heart. She's also given me that letter C over the top part of her body, and she showed me the cancer of hands over it, which often means there was a spread and there was a secondary element to that cancer. This woman that was claiming to be your mother, Shian, was also talking about destruction. She was talking about what's going on in your life at the moment. And she was showing you feeling like you're surrounded by destruction, as if things around you have started to collapse. I was getting this sort of element of fires and explosions and everything going on around you, and in the middle there was this stake, and you were sort of somewhat almost tied to this stake, and you felt that this was all going on and all a little bit overwhelming, and she was just wanting to give you some upliftment. She was also just showing me someone I believe to be like the symbolic for Kali, one of the sort of the Hindu, I think, goddesses of war, and she was just talking about the fact that you've got this, okay, like the warrior princess or that goddess of war. Don't worry about the destruction. The destruction is complete. That is end of chapter, and sort of moving on, like my warrior princess and my goddess. You keep on keeping on. Also this element of there was nothing that could be done, okay, and I know there's an element of you going back and piecing together bits of the jigsaw, but she's talking about it was end of experience for me. I am at peace with that, and there was a relief for me in that passing and not being in pain. So you're not to worry about that. Focus on that dedication, that commitment of love. Jason, anything else you wanted to add?
I decided to pull 2 colour cards for some random reason. And for Shian, I would just say, first of all, I get this lovely brown card. I don't know if you can see it very well. I kind of feel for you that there is a need maybe to plant, not necessarily trees, but flowers from your mum or for your mum, so that you can just, you see these things and they bloom and they move in the cycle of life. And for basically, where life is lost, the best way to overcome death is not only through mediumship, but it's through continuation of life, and planting and making things grow and seeing them thrive can bring us great joy. And then the next card that came was red, which is a beautiful chrysanthemum, I believe. So I do feel I need to give you a chrysanthemum, Shian. But I also, this card says about freeing yourself from pain. And I think one thing to remember always is that whilst we come from our parents, we do not belong to our parents, and vice versa, they do not belong to us. And even though we are bonded together by the circumstance of incarnation, in actuality, we are just people, all individuals living our own life, and people leave our life exactly when we need them to. We might not want them to leave at that point, but that is the best moment for both of us on our journeys. And so I would just say that release yourself from any pain that you may feel. Take this beautiful red chrysanthemum and maybe just look at planting something so that you can see life continuing and, fighting against the sort of negative emotions that sometimes death can bring along with it.
Great, Jason, and Shian was just verifying and saying thank you. And I think, Richard, you were just mentioning that we've got lots of active, interactive audience tonight with the sort of comments. So we're going to do a sort of quick fire of some of your comments and questions that have come in. Maxine said, I'm going to set my dad a place at the table at Christmas in the hope he'll be with us. Yeah, absolutely. The unseen guest at every meal, Maxine, I'm sure he will be. Okay, so Angeline said, keep hearing scratching noises in my room in the corner. Then a few days ago, the clock stopped and then started again after 10 minutes. Jump forward, saying the correct time. Oh. Anything you want to say on that one, Jason?
Hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. I know, honestly, I don't mean that in any sense. I mean, Richard is laughing down the thing. I don't mean that as a jest. Just, you read it, and I do think hickory dickory dock. Perhaps you have a spiritual mouse, or perhaps somebody is just having a bit of a joke. I would always say, though, Angeline, when the clocks stop and when it starts again, I would always advise people to make a note of what those times are. As I've had in past experience, those times usually become very significant moments throughout the story of your life, and you might forget about it for years, and then a time will come and you'll look and go, oh my God, this was the clock that stopped 20 years ago.
Yeah, nice one. Thank you, Jason.
It's a little bit creepy when that happens. You think, oh my God. That's why I have no clocks in my house, so no clocks can stop.
We've got Ali saying she's been told she's spiritual, only ever heard voices the day before I fled domestic violence. I have no clue what was said, but I've never heard it before, and not the last 3 years since. Well, thank you for sharing, Ali. That itself is quite a personal thing. And I just want to tell you, so you're being told that you're spiritual, but you yourself are saying, well, you have heard voices, which is great. You know, either hearing that as direct voice in your ears, or seeing that voice and being told. Well done, you. Bravery that it takes to flee any type of domestic violence situation. But in terms of it coming and going, was that what you needed? You know, and you don't have to answer that, Ali, but was that what you needed at that time? You already had the courage in order to overcome that, and that was just the people in the background. You know, I can imagine people like my nan when I'm at mine. There she is in the background, just going whoop whoop whoop, and that's just my nan. That was all I needed to hear. And then I'm like, no, I want a meaningful conversation with you, and she's gone again. I just needed that little bit of push up the hill. So you know, Jason, anything you wanted to ask or add to that?
I would probably just be a bit pedantic and say there is when those people tell you that you're spiritual, you should ask them what they mean. Do they mean you're a spiritualist? Do they mean you're a medium? Or do they mean you're a spiritual person? We are all spirits living a human experience. We are all spiritual in our own way. Even a football hooligan drunk as a skunk is experiencing a spiritual journey of some kind or other, or that you are mediumistic. I know that's been a bit picky, but lots of people turn around and say, people tell me I'm spiritual, and I kind of think, well, that's a very open-ended statement that doesn't tell me very much. In answer, however, to your very sensitive comment about fleeing domestic violence, I think that goes back to something I mentioned earlier about how the spirit world can be very, very quiet when things are very, very bad. They can also be the very opposite of that, and when they really need to come through because you really need that extra push, then they are more clear than they can ever be before. And I had a very serious situation a few years back, and I saw a person manifest. Me, who says the spirit world does not manifest just like that, had it. And it was absolutely because I needed to see that person that day. And as you say, Alec, that's it, isn't it? It's just that extra special push that says it's time to go now, and that there are higher powers looking after you and reassuring you and laying the ground for you.
Oh, lovely. And Ali was just confirming that, yeah, she thinks the voice was Leave, and just said, I have a gift. Yeah, so, and if you want to work with that, find yourself a spiritualist church or centre. You can also do some work online, but yeah, try and find out who's helping with development nearby. I'd always recommend people joining a circle and finding people that can help them explore their gifts. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ali. Shiam was just saying, yes, we'll be sharing all the good memories in our departed loved ones, as always, in the Philippines, and pray rosary with the family. Thank you so much for all you've shared, and the infos are great, and the Princess of War us motivating. Thank you very much. You're very welcome, Shiam. Kathy, I believe it's better with a bit of personality to read. Yeah, absolutely, Kathy. You certainly get plenty of that with a Jason Robinson sandwich.
I know. I tried to keep my face still then. I was like, whoa.
Right, moving on. Can I ask who you'd say someone who thinks mediumship doesn't necessarily prove life after death, as it might just all be psychic, if you get what I mean? I think good question there, Hallie's House. And I think that actually that can separate the difference between a mediumship message and a psychic message. So mediumship for me should always prove life after death. Mediumship, certainly within spiritualism, for me, is evidence of someone's life after death, their life after that change we call death, evidence of who they are. I mean, you Darren Browns of this world will also say, oh yeah, but if it's psychic and you're reading their mind, then you're actually reading their comments, and the evidence of that personality is from them. But I think that it's then focusing on something which is happening right now, unless you've got, you know, the surveillance capabilities of the CIA and you haven't been spying on someone, then it's their communicator. But Jason, anything you want to add on that? Hallie's house.
Yeah, I really am going to get myself shot with some of these things. Hallie, first of all, the psychic mediumistic divide, I think, is something that we need to slowly but surely start to work away. There are some people who, yes, you need to know the difference. It is important to know where the information is coming from. But like I said with ego before, psychic, spiritual, the difference between the two, some people use it as a rod to beat people. At the end of the day, if you're getting the message you need, does it really matter where it's coming from? And I would even stick my neck out further and say, if you are getting the love and comfort that you need from somebody who is not working psychically, who is not working mediumistically, but is either fraudulent or subconsciously fraudulent, so long as you are getting the love and the healing that is required, is there really a big problem? And I know it's a moral question, but I've seen a fraudulent medium work, and I also saw the tears and the relief that came from this mother as she received a fraudulent message from her child. Some would argue there is a moral point there. I kind of argue, you know, the will of the spirit world saw its way through anyway, because that mother got what she needed, however the means of it being given. So the thing about psychic spiritual, I think, is a really big grey area, and I think it's something that we need to sort of move forward on. And some people come for a mediumistic reading that don't want a mediumistic reading at all. They want a psychic reading. Would also say it's hard to tell if you use the rules of what it is to be psychic and you use the rules of what it is to be a medium. They're very difficult to separate, aren't they? Really, like you can do it on the energy basis, but the actual wording of it is not particularly easy to determine. The only thing I would say, actually, to shut up, Hallie, in answer to your question, is if you really want to know that it's coming from somewhere mediumistically, then you need to ask the person who is speaking to you to give you something that you can not know yourself. So it cannot be in your psychic energy. It cannot be within your mind. It is completely and utterly unknown to you, because that way it can only have come from the higher self or the higher mind. I had this once where somebody told me there was a spirit with me. Her name was Florence. She came through in 5 different readings. Every time she told me she was my grandma, related to me on my father's side. Every time I said, this is a lie, it's nonsense. Turns out she is my great-grandma. She is my granddad's mum. By some strange thing of my granddad being a dodgy man and getting married to more than a couple of women all at the same time, she vanished. But I didn't know it. My dad didn't know it. Nobody knew in our family this lady's name or anything about her, and went to see a medium in the end who just gave me so much about her. And when I went and checked it, it was all true. And there is no way on God's earth anybody living could have known that, because she had vanished from all knowledge. And so that is it. Ask them for something that you don't know. Doesn't help you in the reading, because you're like, it's nonsense, this. But when it comes true later down the line, you'll be mind blown.
Yeah, love that, Jason. You know, and as a medium, when I'm meditating and work with my guides, I like asking questions about the afterlife. You know, what's it like? What is heaven like? And sometimes I can do that with communicators. Sometimes I do it with my own sort of guide team, and I'm trying to get stuff that is not within my imagination. Of course, there's always a subconscious and how Hollywood and TV might have influenced. But yeah, absolutely. Sarah is saying she don't believe it should be used for profit, and I think you're referring to sort of mediumship and psychic readings and everything like that. And I think it's an interesting sort of point, Sarah, because I think that if people dedicate their life to it, and life is expensive, and therefore they are professional and they're disciplined and they do it, I personally don't think that it's a problem for people to charge for their time and their service. Equally, I know what you're saying from a point of, it's a gift. But of course, if you want them to use the gift and read for lots of people, more than a couple of times a year. So, Jason, any thoughts on that?
Me and my dad have had this argument, actually, because he has said it's a gift, you shouldn't charge for it. And I say to my dad, well, you're a very gifted painter and decorator, you charge for that. You know, he's like, yeah, but I trained. It's like many mediums train as well. And you had to pay for your training, they have to pay for theirs. You get your tuition fees back from your clients as the mediums. Singers charge for their gift, dancers charge for their gift, artists and every other thing, they charge for theirs. I can understand mediumship has a complication, that being grief, that makes it a dodgy area. But then you'll know this, Ashley, it's an energy exchange. I don't know, I'm sure you've had this over the years. Somebody will text you and they say, I need to speak to such a person. And then you'll say, I'm not saying you've said it, but I've said it because I'm a bit cold-hearted like this. I need 20 quid. And I went, well, I'm not paying 20 quid for it. Like, well, you don't need it then, do you? Because if you need something, you will do whatever you have to get it. And that is just my opinion. I get that it shouldn't be for profit. It certainly shouldn't. But the person who is receiving the message does in some ways need to acknowledge the, I can't think of the appropriate word, the importance of what they are receiving in return. And that exchange of finance or the exchange of a favour, a gift, what have you, even a hug, it is their acknowledgement of the exchange of the energies. I will say, you know, I can be quite cold-hearted, and I have said to people who text me at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, I need to speak to my dad right now, that you give me 20 quid right now and I'll think about it. But I have also said in readings where I've said, you know, the message was so beautiful, the love that I have felt from the spirit world, so profound to have moved me, as to say, you know what, I don't want any money, I don't want anything off you. The gift is the love that I've just felt coming through you and for you, and that is a beautiful, blissful feeling that no amount of cash that you could hand me is going to measure. I don't know if you've had that, Ashley, but I've had some readings where I've just been like, I don't want anything. This was nice enough.
Absolutely, and you know, there are platforms like this, Spiritual Psychic TV, 100% free. You've given up your time to be on here tonight, even though I know you're a very busy person with family and work life. So I think most people will try and give service in lots of different ways, and I think that's important. I've worked for churches and I've done, you know, mediumship in pubs for charity and not given them my time. I've done mediumships at pubs and I've taken, you know, 50% of the profit, which has gone towards me, you know, living my life. I've driven to churches round the corner and not taken a fee. I've driven to churches, you know, hundreds of miles away, not taken a fee, and then I've taken a fee for a church around the corner. I think if the church has got it to give and people have paid to be there and they can help towards petrol. So I think it is all private, sort of personal decisions. I agree with everything you said.
Absolutely, it is all just personal choice, isn't it? There's me and a lady who I gave a reading to many years ago. She booked a reading. It turns out it was on her son's birthday. She hadn't ever done it before because she didn't want to be reminded of it. Now we have a free sit-in every single year on her son's birthday. We just call him in, we have half an hour chat, he pops in, says, happy birthday, ma'am. We don't swap any money, we just have a nice little bit of a chat. It's become a bit of a tradition. She texted me the week before, like, we're talking to my lad next week. And I do get what the lady who just was there said about if it's a God-given gift, and herself, she never paid to learn. But I would just answer it with this. Whitney Houston had a voice given to her by God. Few people on this earth could ever match a voice like that. And she never paid to learn. But by Christ, she made millions from the use of it. She may have sang in churches as a younger lady for free, but later on in life, she certainly made more money than sense. And I don't see why, if somebody wishes to make themselves rich off spiritualism, they can't. If they want to, they should do by all means. And I don't think the spirit world really cares.
I think spirit aren't fussy. They work with anyone that's prepared to work with them. But equally, hats off to everyone that does dedicate their time. People like Richard, you know, on a Friday night producing the show for us. Everyone involved as ambassadors within spiritualism that give up their time and service, and all the wonderful unsung heroes behind committees and centres that keep them running, and websites and social media, and anyone that can do that and not charge for their time. You know, thank you for what you're able to do too.
Veronica is the most obvious one. I banged the Veronica drum to people in private messages saying we should give her an award for the things that she did over. I mean, and that's not to take anything away from anybody who set up a Zoom room or SPTV, but Veronica Jenkins specifically, I think is a example of the modern pioneers of spiritualism who just tirelessly gave her energy. And I might love the spirit world, but I wouldn't have done what Veronica did for 2 years. Not a cat in hell's chance.
Absolutely. Terry Louise was just giving some. Oh, yeah.
I know, but in Manchester, up and coming's a bit of a slap in the mouth.
Richard, folks, was just alluding to Jason's award there, best up and coming medium.
Well.
Yeah, Terry Louise was just synchronicity. She was talking about the time that she's been waking up the same time her dad had passed away. I think it goes back to your comment you were making there, Jason, about look for the significance in things. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, I would agree with that.
Okay, we'll take the next couple of Nicola Humphreys. Missed our loved ones every day, but it's a bit more prominent this time of the year. Yeah, absolutely. And I read from White Eagle today. One of the things during my interview to become a minister was read from this book and then give an address about it. And it was all about Christmas, and it was actually about the sort of spiritual significance of it, and talking about the fact that spirits as beings are drawn to this time of the year and well. And if you think about our ancestors, were they sure that the days that were getting darker and colder and wetter were going to get brighter, and were the crops going to come back up, and celebrating around that equinox and the days becoming light again, and the circle of all of that? I think is really important. And again, it goes back to what Jason was saying. Are we doing this for love? Is it unconditional love, and is it within that love and turning to face the light? I think that absolutely, it's okay to miss the physical presence of people and dedicate something to the service of them. And remember that we know that they feel that love from Spirit's side too. Jason, anything from you?
You just reminded me that I am a bit of a Scrooge. I don't buy certain people Christmas presents. And a few years ago, my mum said, "Why did you not buy this person a present, this person a present, and this person a present?" I said, "I don't like them." She said, "But why have you not bought them a present? They're this position in our family, this position in our family, and this position in our family." And I said, same answer again. I don't like them. And she said, "But the politics." I said, No. Christmas is not about politics. It's about love and togetherness. I don't want to sit with these people because I don't like them. I may love them as they are my family, but I don't necessarily get on with them. And therefore, why would I take a festival that is based around love and joy and do things that I don't like? And the one thing about Christmas that I find beautiful is that, it is about coming together, and it is about sharing with one another. And I think it's about a sort of my personal opinion, I think in the olden days, it used to be a bit of a fingers up to the gods. Like, here's another year gone, guys. You haven't killed us yet. Try your best next time. Whilst not being, like you say, not sure that the nights are going to get any lighter, not sure the fields are going to grow next year, but sort of like, well, we've got this far, so stuff yous. But the thing I dislike about Christmas, and I don't personally celebrate Christmas. I made a decision a few years ago that as a spiritualist, it doesn't have to me what it does to some people. It's just the amount of stress that it brings, and the needless politics of families pretending that they get on with each other when they don't, buying things that they don't need to buy, and people playing one-upmanship on each other. You constantly see these like, look how wonderful my Christmas day is, and it's like, much good, mate, do you? Like, that's just me. Can you still come to my? Jackie is my colleague and partner in crime when we do the sort of pubs and events up in Manchester. So she did invite me to Christmas for dinner, but I might have just done myself out of one there.
I thought you were called online.
Well, if I don't turn up, she'll think I don't like her, won't she?
Thanks for sharing, Jackie.
She's beautiful, is our Jax. She caused a bit of controversy once when she said to a friend of mine, "I've got your dad here," and she said, "You can't have got me dad. He's not dead." She said, I've definitely got your dad here," and turns out she definitely did.
Right. S.L.A. says, anything external that can aid to unlock or unleash abilities. I'll let you answer this first, Jason, then I wanted to just throw something in at the
end. I would query what you mean by external. I would like to suggest, S.L.A. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sure that you can tools of some kind to unlock things. Fair enough. Yeah, meditation certainly. I would say though, only from my personal experience, when it's ready, it's ready. When they are ready, they will come. If they need you at that time. And some people will go to a church and they'll get ready to learn, and then they'll leave the church and they won't have really got very much, and it'll be 5 years later that they come back and it still won't happen, and then they'll come back in another couple of months or another couple of years and suddenly it's all there. And sometimes, like myself, you'll be lucky enough to walk in that first time and it's there. But yeah, you can do meditation, certainly. You can sit in circles, sit in open circle, but it comes when it's ready. The only thing I would say is, and I won't go on too long, I do apologise, if you do go to an open circle, if you do go to a development circle, there's one thing that I think is really important, and it's, for goodness sake, open your mouth. Because so many people sit there and when the circle's over, they go, I had so much then, you know. And it's like, it's funny because you've sat there stumped for 45 minutes with no indication that you had anything going on. And like, oh, I don't know why, but I have this right sharp pain in my chest. And it's like, I would just say, the meditation works fine. But if you do start working, you must be prepared to actually work and not just wait for it all to magically appear, because it won't.
Yeah, no, nice answer. And I was just going to say, above and beyond, the practice. What I found interesting, in the same way that Jason sort of gave us his story about how he got involved in spiritualism, most people I've met within spiritualism had a deciding moment that either compelled them to attend a church or centre for the first time. Even people like me, I was born in spiritualism. I spent most of my childhood telling my mum and dad, I hope you won't be offended if I don't get involved in this. And then a mate of mine was murdered when I was 18. And he came through and gave evidence of his personality to one of the little old ladies that I said I was fond of at the church. And for me, it was the first time I'd received evidence myself of a friend of mine sort of life. That changed what I wanted to do. And actually, I noticed that some of my own my own mediumship was starting to experiment with. Equally, like lots of other teenagers, I was experimenting. Alcohol. Drinking alcohol and not sleeping properly and going out all night, and your body and mind's all over the place. And you're starting to become less disciplined while you're becoming disciplined, and they in themselves can act as triggers. And then when I had a stroke when I was 25, that was actually what changed the way I was working. So sometimes these things are external in our life. They collide, and you realize it was perhaps all part of a path, but actually those experiences then become something that was meant to be.
I think that interesting, just to add, when that lady, or I assume it's a lady, I don't know why, says crystals and smudging, none of it seems to resonate. And I just argue, my love, that it doesn't need to. And some people really do overdo it with the sage, and they overdo it with the crystals. And it's something that, I don't know if anybody's ever read A Course in Miracles, but there is a concept called spiritual materialism. And the idea is, all of us are just people having a spiritual experience. You don't need to bedeck yourself in crystals. You don't need to smudge your house and have, Om Mani Padme Hum playing in the background all day. You don't need weird pieces of fabric with lots of mind-bending colours everywhere. You just do you. And anybody else who's like, oh, I've got my piece of amethyst, and oh, I've got my Santa Paolo wood burning in the background. If that's them, that's them. If it's not you, it's not you. And I wouldn't take any offence by it. You'll save yourself a fortune.
Yeah.
And a lot of dusting.
Yep, very true. Yep, absolutely. So, folks, it's coming up to almost 9:30. We're just going to take a couple of adverts. When we come back, there'll be a couple more readings from Jason and I. Any final questions, get them in now. Go to the toilet if you've been holding it. You've got the adverts, but make sure you can still listen in.
MySpiritualDirectory.com is one of the fastest growing online free listing service. Our search directory offers geolocation feature, rating ability, review system, map location, customer comment, YouTube video, gallery, social media sharing, direct contact with the lister, simple online booking and payment system. It's free to register and use. It even creates your own mini web page, which you can update at any time, and yes, it's still free, no monthly or yearly fees. 100% free. Creates your own profile page. Add social media and other links. Add a mini gallery and a YouTube video. Rating, reviews and comments. Includes online booking and payments. So, if you're looking for a medium, or a reader, even a church, maybe a healer, or any other spiritual service, then visit myspiritualdirectory.com.
If you're a SPTV VIP, then you're in for a chance to win a massive £100. Tomorrow night from 8 p.m, join Claire Pasterfield for her own show. Claire will be offering free readings and advice via Facebook and YouTube.
Hi, folks, and welcome back. Hopefully, you had a good chance to peruse some of those adverts, and a special, call out and hello to all of our lovely VIPs, the very important patrons of SPTV UK. In order to keep this channel and all of the streams 100% free, it's really helpful that those of you that can afford are donating towards all of the hardware, software and technical stuff that needs to go on behind the scenes, and the hard work that Richard's put in. And we do like to, wherever we can, give back. So you saw a couple of VIP nights there. There is a special event for VIPs, and of course there is a chance to win up to £100 in some sort of fun game. So if you're not a VIP already, head over to SPTV UK. You can find out more about how you can sign up to be a patron. And if you are a VIP, make sure you're checking in and dialing in for all of those wonderful things that is going on, and the chance to win up to £100. That sounds pretty fantastic. Jackie was saying, beautiful page. I'm loving it, guys. Feliz Navidad from Mexico.
I know she's supposed to be on holiday, but you can guarantee her husband's going to be propping up a bar and she's bored, so she's just decided to turn it on.
Great. Leslie loved the sound around that, Richard. That's good. He's very talented, our producer, Richard. We're lucky to have him, aren't we?
He is. He's very gifted.
Rebecca says, I'm getting bombarded with signs as I'm having such a terrible time right now. I feel they are guiding me. Rebecca, well, let's give you a little message. I've just drawn a card for you, which is this one, the skills. And with this skills, there is a crossbow and arrows. And what I was felt as I was playing this card is, yeah, absolutely, you're being guided, Rebecca. Whether or not we choose to listen to that, I do believe we all have a principal guide, our Jiminy Cricket, to help with our consciousness, let us know the right from wrong. If we surrender and we allow them to guide us, our intuition, our instinct, all of that is enormously powerful. Now, with these skills, what I want to say is about you having an extra string to your bow. And with that crossbow in particular, it's a very powerful weapon, and this is about you being at your best and being quite powerful and being quite direct. Of course, if that string goes, all of a sudden you've got all of the arrows and no ability to fire it. So having that extra string, and they talk about having it under your hat, the extra string for the bow, you're back in action. And I want to talk about there's an element of you getting back onto the horse and you continuing to go forward, having access to that bow and that string. But also about preparing for it, because your crossbow, I'm being told, is not going to survive first contact with the target. So I'm glad they said target and not to bad guys, and you're suddenly bandits coming over the hill and you have to take them out with your crossbow. But this element of about you hitting on target, I think this is all about you, Rebecca, being focused and you being at your best more of the time. And I feel it's really important to say more of your time, because if you're at your best all of the time, I would argue it's not your best. That's your everyday, and your best is when you're at your absolute best. And I think it's about getting you back into the position of realizing that you can't maintain that. There's an element of you been having to really push quite hard, and I told there's a lot of resilience around you. So listen to that intuition and instinct. Know that you have those skills. Know that you're planning fruition, making sure you've got that extra string for the bow is really important. Jason, anything you would like to ask?
Yeah, so I pulled some more of the colour cards, Rebecca, and one thing that's interesting is the main colour that comes out is orange. This would indicate that there may be a slight imbalance in your sacral chakra, or an imbalance in the sort of masculine, feminine energy that your spirit soul is experiencing at this moment in time. And I would argue maybe like look on YouTube or seek out a spiritualist healer, whichever form of spiritualist healing works best for you, or use a meditation off YouTube to just focus on the sacral chakra's energy. There can be many reasons why the sacral chakra is not in balance or not working at its best capacity. It can relate to traumas from childhood, traumas in early adulthood, or perhaps relationship issues at some point in your life. I'm not saying they're there now, but at some point. And also these then create an inability to allow your creative power to flow. So, you know, the ability to have that divine spark flowing at its best. I would argue that there is the colour of ruby, which comes forward, which just says there is a bit of a need to sort of run a hot bath, to have a little bit of rest and relaxation, to allow your body to heal. I do feel that your body is a bit weary at the moment. Indigo, which relates to the mind, specifically would suggest that you are suffering with some anxiety. Perhaps in the years gone by, you've had to overcome more complex mental health issues. And that's not to say, you know, anything actually sort of that you need to see anybody for, but just sometimes we often say that mental health basically relates to anxiety and depression. And yet it's actually much more complicated than that. All sorts of things affect our mental health and has all sorts of effects on us, including on our bodies. So sometimes when we feel that we are physically unwell, what is actually happening is we are mentally unwell, and that illness is moving into us. There's someone bullying you at the moment, so you'd understand that, and the idea of coming out of serious illness. It's just the ruby saying, let yourself regenerate, let yourself rejuvenate and have a rest, let your body fill itself back out. The sacral chakra energy saying, you know, let that creative spark move back through you, let your sort of hopes for the future come into fruition, and maybe just take a little bit of time to rebalance the chakras a little bit. Obviously, when we've been through serious illness, we can feel a bit depleted in our spiritual energy as well as our physical energy. I suppose one way to put it is it's often hard to hear God when we've had a bad day. You think, you're clearly not my best mate at the moment. And I would just ask you should sit with that a little bit and let that energy come back. Let yourself come back into balance. Let yourself heal. I have to tell you, you're beautiful just before I leave you. You are not feeling beautiful at the moment. You, for some reason, you've been looking in the mirror and you've been feeling very negative towards yourself, apparently. There is absolutely the need to just remind you that you're beautiful. The soul is always beautiful, even when our bodies feel a little bit worse for wear.
Nice to finish on that point as well. She was giving some confirmation that she absolutely understands what you're saying. So last opportunity for last couple of questions, folks, to get in, and then I'll let Jason decide who gets the last reading at the very end of the show and see who he's drawn to. And if there's an opportunity, I'll come into the back of that. But yeah, Rebecca's saying yes, that's all true, Jason. So yeah, beautiful message.
Lovely.
Very negative, unfortunately. Yeah, we'll keep on keeping on, Rebecca. You've got it.
Just got to push him away, sweetheart. Just send out love and then work on yourself, and that will, in the end, push it all away.
Okay, I'll let you take this question from Kathy, and then I'll come in at the end if I can.
Well, that would, I mean, that seems quite simple, Kathy. That would be clairvoyance. The idea you don't recognise them, I'm sure many clairvoyants will tell you. In the opening of their journey, when they go to bed at night or what have you, they see faces coming in have no recollection of who these people are. They don't know them from their living life or from their day-to-day life. That about the chalk drawing portraits, I've had that myself, where you think it is a face, but it looks like it's sort of dusted or greyed. Drawn portraits of people, so I don't recommend any of them. Kathy, I'm pretty certain I can say this, and this is all I've got to say on it, and let Ashley have the rest of it. Me and Ashley obviously both communicate with the spirit world very, very often. I don't recognise very many of the spirits that come through and communicate. I've done thousands, and I'm sure we're much like people who work in a retail shop or Asda or something. You don't recognise them. Every now and again, you have that one customer, quote unquote customer, who you do recognise and you've had before, and you sort of be like, oh, hiya, sweetheart, you all right, Mary, how's your daughter doing, type of thing, because they just hang around a little bit longer and chat a little bit more, open up a little bit better. Just don't sweat it if you don't recognise them.
Kathy, thanks you for explaining it. I'm not going to really add anything else to that other than ask them. If you don't know who they are, ask them. That's exactly what I get. Maybe they're a guide, maybe they're a communicator. Yeah, Richard's just sharing some of his folks. Yeah. And I assume you folks, you can't hear Richard, but he was just suggesting, a good working theory there, that perhaps some of those faces could even be from a previous incarnation, and it's friends, family, loved ones just popping in to say hello to you, which I think is quite a nice one.
Not that any of us could hear what Richard said to us, but I would just say to Richard, since he's listening from the gods, there's the alternative view that the faces of the people that you are seeing are not necessarily in the spirit world at all, but are other people in your local community or there or thereabouts who are already asleep and in bed and already sort of in theta state or whatever state it is where the dream world is. And all you are doing as you are moving into it is you are joining in the oneness of that dream energy just as you reach it, but they're already asleep. Because you never see it on the way back awake, do you? I've never seen it coming back, the faces. I've always seen it just as I've been nodding off. So I wonder if it's just me. If it is my neighbour, I'm going to tell the one down the road to stop the cat on my garden.
Put some clothes on.
Yeah, like, oh, can you not go to bed dressed, love?
It does sound like the start of a Freddy Krueger film as well, The Nightmare on Elm Street. But yeah, absolutely, the out of body experience and that all sort of coming together and meeting. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we absolutely work as something that really been paying a lot of attention to recently in terms of like friends and family, is how we really do form like communal hive minds, like between our friends and our family. Like when you say, oh, I think I need to ring my mum, and then you go to your phone and your mum's ringing you, and it's like, oh, just thinking about you. It's like, well, I knew you were because I've just heard you, hence why I've just picked up the phone to you. And one of my friends just texted me then and said, how are you feeling? She's like, are you feeling like this? And clearly she's picking up a little bit of backflow from my own emotions. And you know when to not text people, don't you? Even if you've not spoken to them all day, you just know they don't want you to talk to them because you can feel it in their like, they're not having a good day. And I believe that. I think we work as a really close hive mind at times, and that's what you're tapping into as you go into sleep.
Yeah, amazing. And people were sharing feedback there on Facebook and YouTube as well, agreeing with what was said. Jason, I'll let you pick the next reading, either someone you're drawn to in the chat, or if you've got anything spiritual or a particular card for someone.
I actually think since Kathy Littlewood, have we already give Kathy a message? Have we already given her? So. Yeah. I think Kathy, since you're the last one, I'll give you a bit of a something. I don't know why, but it's only fair, isn't it, sweetheart? Since you're the last one of the day, I give you a couple of colour cards, and we'll see what. I don't really use cards anymore, but yeah. Oh, well, that's
Thanks for all of your contributions, folks. It's been very much appreciated. It's lovely to have your interactive energy on the show tonight. There's a good fist bump there in the air as well. Don't know how you produce those things on Facebook, but you clearly need to give me some lessons. That's good.
I can't do that. I must be too old. So, Kathy, for you, I have blue, emerald, and scarlet. Now, it's really weird because as soon as I look at those cards, I kind of want to place you as a healer. Some people would give you the impression that healing is not as important as mediumship. Some people would argue it's a little bit more boring than mediumship. I don't believe either of those two things are true. I would seriously suggest sitting with yourself, Kathy, and sort of allowing that healing energy that you possess. When you are going to sleep at night, actually, that has just come to me, perhaps focus on one of those faces, bring them in. If you do possess healing energy, maybe it's worthwhile that just before you go to sleep, you draw one of those faces closer to you. And they actually might be somebody physically living upon this earth who does need some healing. And you just send your love and your light to them whilst you are just preparing yourself to go to sleep. It will help you sleep, which apparently you do need a little bit of. And it will also help somebody else in the world. The card of Scarlet, which is there, tells me that actually you are in the beginnings of a spiritual awakening, that these faces are not just casual by your leave figments of your imagination or anything like that. They are genuinely an opening that you need to focus on a little bit more. I would personally also say, as I look at that, it does tell me that perhaps when you see these images, you should try and play with them a little bit. Some people, I just have to say this, some people would have you believe that like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, it just comes and you have to just give what you have been given and you can't do anything with it. But you can move it around a little bit at times and play with it, make it a bit more expanded, a bit smaller. And I absolutely believe from these cards, first of all, that you have a proper healing power, and that is something you should be really moving towards. And I also believe that these faces are there for you so that you can experiment a little bit, learn how to use the energy, learn how to feel the energy, and maybe just push yourself a little bit further, possibly not when you're going to sleep, and just ask them if they can speak to you, if they can give you any sort of information. I would advise not to do it as you're going to bed, because if somebody just does go, hello, Kathy, you might find that you don't go to bed quite so easily. But I hope you can take some of that. It's a bit of a different one, but I leave with the love of the spirit. I wish you a Merry Christmas. I do just have to say there is a gentleman shouting in from the other world. He's late, so he's not going to get very much of an opportunity to say hello to you. He is moving in on a father vibration. He is making me feel quite tight-chested and quite tight in the tummy. But he is late and he is being sat on a seat. So Ashley can have his go and maybe communicate with him instead. But I just have to put this paternal feeling there with a very tight-chested gentleman who's a bit wheezy as well. And I wish you a Merry Christmas, and maybe you'll be on SPTV somewhere at the end of next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Great message. And just to add to that, this man was talking about you, and he was talking about motherhood and nature. He was saying, Kathy was saying, beautiful message, Jason, and said, absolutely. There was something about your feminine nature and your mothering side, your nurturing side, Kathy, that this man was just drawing into, and say how powerful that is. I had this sort of collection of family around you, and them needing that nourishment and that nurturing was quite important. But there was an element of you in particular feeling somewhat smothered, and I want to say there is a family element there that he was just making reference to. And while it was really important and it was nice to be there we are tucked away on the family chair and all together, there's an element that this threatens to smother your individuality. And he's just talking about the fact that you would understand this and you need to remain authentic. Thank you, Kathy. You were saying your dad was a very heavy smoker, so just giving that confirmation there for you, Jason. And Kathy, you had the last question and the last message for tonight. We've gone on a little bit longer tonight, folks, but Jason and I've certainly really enjoyed working with you. We want to say thank you to Richard, our producer. Thank you to all you lovely people that have stayed with us for almost 2 hours. Jason, you've been an amazing guest. You've given some great evidence today, and some great energy, some humour. You've had you be smiling, and I know you've entertained the folks back at home. We're really grateful for you giving us your time, and I hope there's an opportunity for me to work alongside you again. So I've absolutely loved that, Jason. So thank you so much. Any final closing words you want to say to the good people of SPTV World?
Just thank you to yourself for inviting me. It's a pleasure, Ashley. You know, you are somebody I listen to and I've watched lots, so it's an honour to be asked to come and share with you. And to the person who is the voice in everybody's ear, I just wish him and his family a very Merry Christmas, and yourself, Ashley, a Merry Christmas, and just everybody who supports SPTV, I wish a very Merry Christmas, or whatever, you know, Hanukkah, Yuletide, whichever one you prefer. But most importantly, have a safe Christmas and New Year. And I would just say, which has just come to me, this Christmas is going to be a very, very hard one for lots and lots of people. We are in unprecedented times. But I would just remind everybody that the spirit world is always with you. They will not let you down. If you do need help, you can ask for it and they will give. And I do always say, if you need cash, if you need something for your children for present or food or whatever, you are well capable of asking the spirit world and they will provide it. They do not care what you ask for. And when people say you shouldn't ask for yourself, well, why not? Because your friends and your family in the spirit world care about you and love you. If you have something you need, tell them what it is and they will bring it to you in some way, shape or form. You might ask for a turkey and you might get a living one brought in your garden, but you still got a turkey and that will all be that matters. And just remember that, like, the, you know, second principle of modern day spiritualism is the brotherhood of man. So long as we have each other, without any politics involved, we will get to the other side and things will get better very soon.
Fantastic. What a beautiful way to finish the show, Jason. I can only say good night and God bless. Thanks a lot, folks.